Welcome to Bat Therapy, mental health through the lens of comics and film. Be a fly on the wall or a bat in the cave, listening in on a friendship built out of a love for talking Batman, comics, and the everyday struggle to achieve mental health and happiness.
We're your hosts, clinical psychologist Dr. Amelia Brown and educator and comic aficionado Keaton Hopkins. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube and social media and find our Patreon at patreon.com/battherapy.
This podcast is about providing education and understanding and is not a replacement for mental health treatment or support. If you're needing help, go to bat-therapy.com for resources. Bum, ba, 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 ba. I loved that they went back to the original.
I do too. They pulled back and brought in some nostalgia. I think that brought in a lot of like love for it. Like this movie, it was one of those things. I think it reminded you of why we do love Superman. It was also so colorful. Like
Weird,
looking
right?
at this movie and comparing it to the Snyderverse, I'm like, wow.
You have to adjust your TV.
Everywhere was Gotham in the Snyderverse. Like, good
so
Lord.
Obviously we're doing the new Superman movie. I think, okay. So usually we're like making jokes and we're like, oh, spoilers. But if you haven't done this already, blah, blah, blah. So this one, like literally like spoilers.
Seriously,
and
spoilers.
This is a brand new movie and
Yeah.
Keaton and I are nerds. So we saw it within the first week. So
yeah. Okay.
yeah,
so
just a warning.
First things first. Did you like the movie?
I really enjoyed the movie. I mean, is it like my favorite superhero movie ever? No. But like you said, great nostalgia. I feel like it hit the chords of Superman as we know him, the legend. As opposed to like, I don't know, Superman was getting a little Batman-y in some of the more recent movies. And I'm like, whoa, stay off my Batman. They're different for a reason, right? So I feel like I feel like he was more true to the Superman that we grew up with.
Definitely.
And I loved all the cameos and the Easter eggs, and I thought those were all like really nice touches. And we'll go into some of the other things I liked, but yeah, in general, I really liked the movie. How about you?
I did. I absolutely liked it. It was a lot. They crammed a lot in there, but somehow it worked.
You know
somehow.
Me. I am the first person to say they put too many characters, they tried to put too much in there, blah, 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 and then you don't hit on enough. I'm usually the first person to complain about that. I agree with you. They put in a ton of stuff, but you know what I think it was is that some movies, they'll be like, okay, I'm going to give you all these cool characters that you like, but they do it in a way where it's like, here's the main villain. No, wait, here's the main villain. No, wait, and so they'll like try to make too many characters the main character.
Yeah.
And I think this did a good job of just kind of giving you snippets of his life. So you get like little pieces and you want more, but you don't feel like they created a character and then left you hanging.
Yeah. So the thing, let me just say, Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor. I absolutely loved the amount of hatred he had for Superman. And I love how hard they leaned into it. Like they leaned into like Lex. And it's the thing that I'm trying to think about right now is, do I like this movie because I like it, or do I like this movie because it's so different from the last Lex that we had in the Snyderverse, right? Like
I have to be honest, like this Lex doesn't stand out to me.
He's no Rosenbaum, but no one is.
He doesn't stand out to me, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. That is a good question. Like, how much do we like it versus how much was it nice for it to kind of honestly, I think part of why I liked it is it was so much more the Superman. Like I grew up with the Adventures of Lois and Clark, and all of the, Justice League Unlimited and all that stuff. And then when I started reading comics, when I love Superman, when he's just completely different and like tussling off of Batman, and I just love it. And this was the Superman that I feel like fit a lot of that for me. So there's probably, yeah, the most recent Superman was too gritty for me. I was like, come on, like he's supposed to be a little bit of a Boy Scout, you know?
Which is funny because I loved Henry Cavill as Superman.
Like,
I
you know,
loved
I
him
didn't
as
have anything against him.
Superman. It's just, yeah, it was way too bleak and
Hmm.
dark for
Yeah,
it to be the guy that saves squirrels that like we saw in
yeah.
this movie, right?
So
Or
like this one, you get the so this is what so you know, we chat before we record and we're friends, so we like start talking about things, and then my husband inevitably gets mad at us and starts recording because we start talking about things that we should have on the podcast. One of those things today was when I started sharing how so this is the Superman softie who I am not surprised would be terrible at training a dog. Now, at the end, you find out it's not his dog. He wasn't doing himself any favors with that dog either. Like, you know, he's the guy who's like so much a good guy that he like maybe doesn't like, you know, set strong enough discipline for crypto.
well, also, does this dog stay at the Fortress of Solitude while he's just gone all the time?
And then he's like, "Why is my place wrecked?" Well,
Right.
man,
That's what
you
I
didn't
was thinking.
I was going to say walk your dog, but I guess you didn't fly your dog. That's
Right.
why. This is on you, not your robots.
Right. That's the
Yeah.
thing. And
Yeah.
so I was that was one of the things I was thinking about. I'm like, okay, does this dog just like sit around in this cold fortress all day long, just not doing anything? Because the robots clearly were just like, we do not care about this dog at
I know.
all.
It's so
Like
sad.
they were very proud of that.
Well, like
Um,
Crypto is clearly a high energy dog
yes.
who's very smart, but also, well, maybe not very smart, but like a high energy dog that's, you know, needs some wrangling, shall we say, and could learn a thing. I mean, you know, he's still like Crypto doesn't always do what he's told, but he was also not trained to do what he was told. And I don't blame the dog for that. And so yeah, poor Crypto. Although I did like how Superman ended up using that against clone Superman at one point, because it's like, oh,
Hmm.
let me use the untrained dog to my advantage today. But yeah, that poor dog just needs a really good, you know, trainer who can just help him reel himself in ways that, you know, Clark's parents probably helped him with.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, but I really they didn't waste any time as far as like seeing backstory that we already know. They kind of got it over with in the opening credits. I love the way they
mm.
use like the three, 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 like the different time scales. Like this is when this happened. This is when this
Oh,
happened.
yeah,
Three
yeah, yeah.
centuries ago, 3 decades ago, 3 months ago, like the way that they did that. And this
I
is a
like that
very,
too.
yeah, because it's like, all right, yeah, we know he landed on a ship, Krypton blew up, blah 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 blah. Bradley Cooper's his dad. Like
So instead of making it a 3-hour movie, yeah, I agree. I remember when they were doing that, I thought to myself, like, hey, I actually, I kind of like how okay, you're plopping us in the middle of stuff here. I agree because it's been done so many times, and it's been done recently.
mhm.
So there's no reason to rehash all that stuff. Although it does I did find myself wanting more of Ma and Pa Kent. I gotta say, they
Yeah,
were a delight. I I was honestly thrilled by their characters. So Smallville, as much as you love it, like I feel like his dad hits on the farm a bit. I guess his mom's tech is she like from Metropolis originally? I guess she was like in that storyline. I don't think she was.
in that one,
Yeah,
yeah, she like, yeah, she,
but they started talking and I was back in the rural South and I was just like, "Oh my gosh." I just felt like they nailed it. I loved that they were normal looking people. So admittedly, I don't know the Kansas accents, so like don't please don't jump down my throat, but at least someone from Eastern North Carolina. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is such a great southern representation of his like loving rural parents. They didn't like guss him up or anything. And they even like age wise, I felt like it made sense with what the story is for
yeah,
Superman. So I really liked them a lot.
yeah. And the thing is, I don't normally think of like Kansas as the South. Like I definitely think of it as
Sure.
the Midwest, but they definitely have the rural South and Midwest definitely have a lot of similarities. And so I definitely got that hometown vibe
You were like,
from them.
these people are literally from a farm. There was no
But
question.
I also the thing about Superman that is interesting because we talk about Batman all the time on this podcast, right? Batman's
Sure.
parents died, Butler
Yep.
stepped in, and
Yep.
Bruce kind of sort of raised himself with Alfred's supervision. Alfred did the best he could, but Bruce
Yeah.
wasn't like, bro, you're not my dad. And that's just how it was. Superman, it was a real nature versus nurture kind of situation, right? Because
Mm.
Krypton got completely destroyed. The Kents raised Clark. Like, they are the only parents he has physically ever
Yep.
known or been
And
in
with this
contact
Superman,
with.
all he has is, and there's usually something, that he's found that's a message from his parents. All he has is this video message that's like half corrupted. And so he actually, fortunately, didn't get the whole
Yeah, he just has this
message.
like saved Snapchat from like Krypton.
Uh-huh.
And
And
yeah,
it's only part one of part of two parts. And woo, is part two a doozy? Yeah. Um, it's true. So they both are orphans, but it's in very different ways. And being able to have those reliable caregivers or some adults that can help you through childhood is just so incredibly important. Whatever form that takes, whether it's a parent or a guardian or
mhm.
grandparent or, whatever. And yeah, there is an interesting thing with Superman. And so part of this movie, which I feel like is a major theme that comes up a lot in his storylines, is essentially, okay, yeah, he's an alien and also he is human because he, like you said, nature versus nurture. And what we find is that usually it's both. And so people are very afraid of him fully taking on complete alien identity. Who knows if his parents had been brutally murdered like Bruce has had in front of him? Maybe he would have taken that route. Who knows? But yeah, I think there's a really interesting piece to him where it's not all about where you were born, but also how you were raised and who you are as a person as you develop and just bringing all of that together.
And the thing is, too, Superman's also proud of his humanity.
Mm, mhm.
He's very proud of his humanity. Like he is not ashamed of being from Smallville, Kansas. He is not ashamed of being sad when him and Lois are fighting. Like he is an alien from another planet, but he's also completely human. He's also completely human, which is, I think, that's the only good way to tell Superman's stories is to show the human flaws that he still has. Lex still winds him up, gets his temper, makes him angry, makes him lash out and do things that like aren't normal. Very human thing,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It would not be a good movie if he was just walking around letting bullets hit him and bounce off him and just punching things into the
Mhm.
into the solar system all
Just
day.
showing how perfect of a specimen he is, and
Right. And we
yeah.
had those moments. And those moments that we had, oh, it was so cool. But
Sure.
I did love that this movie did such a good job focusing on his relationship with Lois, his relationship with his parents, his relationship with Lex, you
Mhm.
know, with
Yeah,
Krypto. Like it really
with the
showed, hey,
robots.
yeah, yeah. It really showed like this more human than some of us are, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and I think one of the really difficult pieces with him, I mean, this is a universe that has metahumans, and they've had him for a long while. So it's not that he's a completely foreign idea, but people are aware that he's an alien. I think one of the things that works against him because people very quickly forget everything he's done for them and all
yes.
the good that he's done when the rest of that video comes out. And I think there's a twofold to that. One is obviously so they showed all the monkeys or whatever that Lex had doing a social media campaign against Superman. And look, let's be real. I mean, we can hit on it at some point, but the algorithms for social media are quite toxic. There's actually a lot of mental health concerns that come with a lot of those things. The way that information is given to us makes us think we're seeing it all, but we're really seeing things skewed toward us. So there's a lot of stuff related to that that I absolutely think factored in. I also think it worked against him, though, that he's a celebrity, and not only that, but he's put on a really high pedestal. He's like a heroic celebrity.
Yes.
And because of that, I think that also fed into the reaction that people had related
Hmm.
to him, because even though he was so helpful, it was hard to compare him to an everyday human being person, just like with celebrities in our world. And, we will be cruel to them if they show any weakness, because
Hmm.
how dare you, with so much, pretend like your life's not perfect, right? Or we see a flaw and we flaunt it everywhere about this person just to try and make them seem like everyone else. Or when we see them somewhere, we shut down. We can't even talk to them because it's like they're different from everybody.
Hmm.
And so he has all of these pieces going on too. And I think that factors in as well when that video comes out, that it hits on the fact that even though he's with everyone else, almost everyone doesn't know Clark Kent. And so he's not really with everyone else. And so people like Lex Luthor and whatnot, in some ways, it's understandable that they're very concerned that this alien is doing all these things, because they don't actually know that he is really and truly born and bred farm boy
Hmm.
human. They don't know that. They have
Right.
no idea any of those things that make him so innately human. And so I don't think it takes as much to break him down versus if you're Lois and or the members of the, what do they call themselves? Justice
Justice Gang.
Justice Gang. So even the members of the Justice Gang, who didn't seem like they were necessarily his best buddies or anything, the people that knew his human side and could see it more directly were less affected by the video and everything that happened.
Hmm.
Other people, there's the celebrity piece, there's the social media piece, and then also he's in the public eye. They think they know him, but they really don't. They don't know any of this stuff. They don't know how human he is. Yeah. And honestly, he's kind of in a catch 22, because I mean, I guess you could tell everyone, but then that would help you in some ways and really hurt you in others. So I think he's
Well,
kind
and
of stuck.
the thing is, the metahumans that we saw in this movie, they made sure to show just how human they were. I mean, even when they introduced Metamorpho,
Oh, his baby. I was like, Lex, you're a terrible person.
Lex is the worst. Okay, like that's the thing.
He
Like
has
Lex,
no soul in this movie.
none, none. He's an absolute bastard and a half in this movie,
I
and
know.
and
I
they
mean, like,
just
to be clear,
yeah,
that's not like my diagnostic assessment as a psychologist. That's just my reaction to him when I see that he's using the life of someone's baby to like control them like that. But how off? Yeah, he's awful. Oh,
yeah.
metamorphosis. Yeah,
Yeah, Metamorpho. He's
or
awesome, and
metamorpho. Yeah.
it was Anthony Kerrigan. He's the same guy. Do you remember? He played Victor Zsasz in Gotham, so quite the turnaround, right?
Really?
Yeah, that was him.
I did not recognize him, and I am
Yeah, they definitely had
0%
him.
surprised.
Yeah, they definitely had him completely covered up. But yeah, that was him, Anthony Kerrigan. He did a great job. And again, everything he was doing, it was for his son that he did not want to be hurt the same way Superman was just like, okay, they don't trust me. I turn myself in. I mean, what else am I going to do? They took my dog, right? They took,
I
which
know.
is also super low.
It
And
is super low, but they didn't just take the dog because it's his dog. I mean, it's a super powered dog.
yeah,
So to be fair,
they would have taken that dog if it was a completely normal dog.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah, they would have 100% just
that's
taken
true.
this. Yeah, just because it's Superman's dog. That's the
Yeah.
thing. Like Lex is the kind of person I think that would like put Superman's toothbrush in the toilet
Yeah.
and then
Can I
put it back,
just
just because of sheer hatred for him.
so,
It was a
so
petty hate.
speaking of how Lex Luthor is like something? a love-hate I have about the plot that I both believe and don't believe at the same time. I saw the first time I saw his ditzy girlfriend taking selfies, I was like, "Who the hell lets her take selfies in all these random places? That's a
It
problem."
didn't make any sense.
Yeah, and I was like, "How would Lex?" So, okay, a part of me,
It
if I
also didn't make
psychologically
sense
break this
that
down.
that was his girlfriend. Like, I don't.
I know, yeah. All but okay, so this version of Lex uses people a ton, and I'm not really sure what he was getting out of that relationship. I don't know, maybe she's really good at bed, although, like, he seems like he'd be
That could be.
asexual, but
That
I could
could
be
be it.
wrong.
She was all about some Jimmy, though.
Oh, yeah, and that guy never ages, by the way. Um, so, okay, on the one hand, I don't believe that Lex would just, like, let someone take a bunch of pictures on an unsecure phone. On the flip side, this guy would assume that that woman is too dumb to know what to do with those pictures, even if she had anything. So, in some ways, I'm not surprised that he would undervalue her to the point where she like almost doesn't exist or he's like trying to ignore her.
Hmm.
But I'm like, seriously, this guy doesn't have rules about people taking pictures when they like go and do stuff?
So I thought about it that way. I also thought about the idea of complete tunnel vision and infatuation to a fault, right?
Yep.
Like, he was so angry at Superman and so obsessed with
He had
Superman,
blinders on.
he had blinders on and didn't even
Yeah.
notice, like, did she just take a picture of that map? Like, that's a big deal.
And okay, to be fair to that subplot, which still I'm just kind of like, really? Nobody was like, "Hey, stop doing that." But so like I had a family member who was so smart. Like built some of the first robotic arms, like a brain that could just like do amazing things and would then like bring a pizza home, holding it sideways next to him with the sauce just like streaming out of the box. So I do understand the concept of different kinds of intelligence, and a person can also be extremely intelligent to the point where they may not have common sense in certain areas that other people find very basic.
That's what you're saying.
So maybe there's a little bit of that going on. I don't know. I don't know. It stood out to me. I mean, later on, it's like, okay, I see where you're going with that, but like, nobody was like, put your phone away, you know,
Right.
or just broke it,
A
I don't
little
know.
bit odd. A little bit.
But,
But at the same time,
you know,
all of them were probably like, "Ugh, I'm not gonna say anything to Lex's girlfriend."
that's true, because if Lex doesn't like what you're saying, you're going to the bad place.
Right. He just will make a pocket dimension to just throw you into. And
Which also, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna make a pocket dimension that could like mess up the entire world. Yikes.
and I don't even care. I just love at the end he was so mad. He was like, "Let him die. I don't even care." Like, the obsession
Yep.
that he had, they
Yep.
nailed that
Oh,
part.
agreed. Yeah.
They
Because
nailed
that
that
obsession is
part.
so key. And now, granted, once again, this
And they're
man.
still young, so I'm really interested in seeing
Yeah.
how this grows in this universe.
True. So I think that's part of what struck me so much with Lex is I agree they nailed the obsession. Usually, I feel like you get the obsession and all of the things that go along with it, and then later all the cruelty really builds up. With
Hmm.
this guy, probably, let's just say, if let's just say if people were worried about him at a young age and what he would turn into, that would not surprise me because yeah, he just does all of the he doesn't care. He's literally about to destroy the whole world and all these and like you said, they're still young. So I think I'm used to with these stories, and granted they plopped us in the middle, but I'm
Yes.
used to seeing the obsession and then that
Grow.
builds into
Yeah.
yeah. And so they just plopped you right in the middle where he's already cruel, he's already doing vicious stuff, and it's kind of like, okay, where do you even go from here? But also, I mean, when he talks about his concerns about Superman, once again, remember, he does not know how human Superman is.
Mm-mm.
And so some of his concerns are legitimate, except that he's so obsessed he can't take in any actual information to help him recalculate over time.
Yeah. And I did love his monologue that he had at the end
Mm, yeah.
with Lex. It's like, this is what you don't get about me, man. Like, dude, I am human, despite what you may think, despite how you treat me, and despite all the badass things that he did when against like Ultraman and the Raptors, I think,
I think that's what they're called.
which Michael Rosenbaum was the voice of one of them.
Really? Oh man, I missed so many cameos.
Yeah, Michael Rosenbaum. It was a voice, so it was like super quick. You would have
Well,
missed it. Yeah,
those are the ones I usually pick up on. I'll be like, I know that voice somewhere, and then I'll have to look it up. I
yeah.
usually get those more than the visuals, but I missed so many.
Yeah, that was I can't remember who told me about that Easter. I looked it up. I was like, oh, that's so cool. That's great.
Uh,
Yeah, and I also really love that they did away with the whole Lois doesn't know. Like, yeah, I'm surprised that
I
yeah,
loved at the end when
Perry.
Perry and Jimmy are talking about how long they've been together.
It's like, yeah, about 3 months. They just straight up knew, like, you're not
Just like
fooling
essentially saying like,
anyone.
yeah, they're terrible at hiding anything. They know everything. I
Right.
was like,
You're
oh,
not
that
fooling
was just perfect.
anyone. But another thing to touch on with this is this idea, and we see it a lot in superhero movies, of if you see someone being hurt, harmed, disenfranchised, it's your responsibility to
Mm.
do something about it. And this movie did not shy away from current events.
So yes, and
Okay.
so here's my reaction is I agree with you. It did not shy away from current events, but I think that I could be totally wrong. But my impression is that because of where we're at currently, some people might feel like this movie was written more about our time than it is. So I feel like this was your standard pre-Snyder, your standard Superman movie. It hits different because of the time we're in.
Okay.
Because if you think about it, having the like Eastern European or like Middle Eastern dictator who's like, that's not a new storyline.
That's true.
It's different now,
That's
but
true.
it's not a new storyline.
That's true. It's a very good point.
Or innocent people getting attacked and then a superhero having to decide what they do about it. That's not a new storyline. I'm not
No,
saying that they
that's a
weren't
great point. That's a very good point.
I'm not saying that they very well could have written things in specifically for the times we're in. But even like so that back and forth we talked about near the end where it's about being alien versus human, even that is very Superman from the beginning, right? And so I'm not saying that they didn't write some things taking from today and wanting to send certain messages. I just would argue that those messages aren't actually new. They just hit
Things
different
suck
now.
this much because supervillains are just real now, right?
Yeah.
I remember I had a teacher one time, and it was like a science class, and we watched like a snippet of Captain Planet, and someone in class was like, Captain Planet isn't real. And the teacher just goes, yeah, but all the villains are.
How
I
that
was
hurts.
like, Jesus. Oh,
Oh,
like,
that hurt
yeah,
deep within my soul.
yeah, it cuts
Oh,
deep, but it's so true, right? And so you're right. This is not a plot line that is anything new. It's just we are in unprecedented times where it's like, yeah, it's just happening
yeah.
in two different places. And what the internet's arguing about is which place they were talking about. Right? Like that's where we're at as a society. No,
Yeah.
it was more this country being trampled on. No, I'm pretty sure it was more this country being trampled on. It's like, what? This is where we are, right?
Right.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
that's
And
a
so
very good point. Things
and I
just
would
suck.
argue that this is a much less direct line than like Superman fights the Ku Klux Klan, you know? Like he literally fights the Superman's been used for a lot of, different types of all superhero movies and comics and stuff. So I feel like there's actually other storylines that like beat you over the head with it way more than this one did. Uh
Absolutely. I remember,
the,
yeah, because
that one piece near the end, I could see people maybe being like, "Oh, I see what you're doing here." But even then, I'm like, "This is totally a Lex Luthor Superman dialogue that would have happened 30 years ago
I feel
or
like the
more.
people that have a problem with that are the same people that still think Homelander is the good guy in The Boys.
I just love how the people that wrote Homelander are just like,
Really?
"Oh, no."
Really? Right? Like Anthony Starr is just about to crash out. Like, no, I am not your hero. What is wrong with you? Like, he's just
Yeah. Yeah,
the same thing with Lex Luthor. I'm sure there are people like, yeah, he tells it like it is, right?
so the thing once again, I would argue that Lex is not without his points. But the problem is that when you get so stuck in your mindset that you cannot take in new information, I don't care how smart you are. And Lex is proof of that. I do not care how smart you are. Everyone's everyone can become so focused. It's why, like, for research, for example, they do double blind experiments where everyone involved has no idea what they're giving people. Am I giving them the treatment and am I giving them a placebo? They don't know. It's why we set things up so people can't accidentally influence it, because
Mhm.
it's so hard not to let your perception make some sort of impact on things. And so it's not a lot of the people who love Homelander. It's not that every point is bad, it's that we get stuck and we can't see outside of our own lane and
Right.
see also where other people are coming from and try and kind of integrate all of the information together. Because, yeah, Lex becomes so obsessed. If anyone is acting inhuman, it's him. He's literally okay with destroying all humanity to get the one alien. Because he's well, actually, he admits at certain points, like, "Yeah, okay, this is about my pride." So, I mean,
Or
obviously, it's
like,
not
yeah,
just about saving humanity.
when he kills the one guy just
Oh
because it'll
god.
upset Superman, like that was just yeah. They made
Yeah, the guy with,
sure
like, the food cart or whatever. That was so sad.
one thing they did do differently in this movie is I feel like in well, they didn't really do it differently in the movie. I think I'm just comparing it to Smallville. In Smallville, Lex had shades of gray. In Smallville, Lex had shades of gray. In this, it's like, no, he's the villain. Like straight up, like no ifs,
Yeah.
ands, or buts here. He's the villain.
Yeah, because I mean, once again, he says some things that sound good on the surface, but his actions related to things are something like
Yikes.
being concerned that an alien from outer space who is so able to overpower anything and everyone and makes all of these giant decisions everywhere, even with countries, it's understandable that you would be concerned and you would want to reel that in.
Mhm.
But then you look at what he's doing with it and you go, "Wait a second." Yeah, he definitely, he tries to sound like he's the anti-hero in what he says, but then if anyone, like, scratches underneath the surface, he'll be like, "Oh, well, yeah, I actually don't care about anybody." Or you find out that he wants to, have his own country or whatever, and, yeah, yeah, they don't really humanize him much. Once again, it's the, like, he's actually so obsessed with what Superman might be when ironically it's him. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. It's pretty yeah, it was pretty definitely significant. I also really loved seeing how Superman interacted with the other heroes. The other
yeah,
heroes, they show up, they're like, all right, we're here to save the day. We're here to fight whatever the thing is. Superman, almost the entire time, once they get there, he's on damage control. He's like, I got to make sure these people don't
yeah.
get hit. I got to make sure that building doesn't fall down. I got to make sure that squirrel gets saved. I really love how
That squirrel was cute.
it was.
That was a cute moment.
I really love how they leaned into like he's here to help
Yeah.
people, right?
Which I feel like in some ways is the opposite of how, like, the Justice League cartoon was, because I feel like he was the big muscle and
Oh
then
yeah, here's the big gun.
other characters were coming in and trying to do, like, the support. So it was an interesting shift.
And it depends on the situation too, because
Mhm.
Superman is so overpowered. Like sometimes it'll be like, oh man, we got to get these people evacuated, while Superman is literally rerouting a
Yep,
volcano, right?
yep.
Like because he's just
Superman.
that He's just that strong. And I
Yeah.
think that one of the things that probably is difficult about being Superman is balancing out his own responsibilities, right? Like he clearly puts being Superman and saving people and saving the day ahead of his home life, ahead of his work. He already puts it towards that. But I think sometimes, I think what he would have a difficult time with is, hey, I can't save that squirrel. I can't be here and save that squirrel,
Yep. Yep.
right?
Yeah, there's definitely, I mean, it always comes back to that Peter Parker quote, right? With great power comes great responsibility. It can be very hard to be capable because absolutely um or even even if you don't have superpowers, but you're just someone who really cares about other people, that's a running theme that comes up is it's impossible to help everyone all of the time with
Yes.
everything. And there are just some very wonderful, very conscientious people out there who that's very hard to admit.
Well, perfect timing, Superman complex,
Exactly. Yeah.
right? That
Hmm.
idea that like there's an unhealthy sense of responsibility or like, hey, and the thing is, this wasn't unhealthy because, okay, so, and this is just me talking as a science teacher that has Googled Superman complex. Okay. I cannot stress that enough. She's the doctor. I just exist and read things. Okay. But normally when I think of a Superman complex, it's like there's just, you don't trust anyone else to do anything.
Which we see in some storylines with him that he struggles with that,
Right.
but
In
not this
this,
one.
in yes, I was gonna say in this, I there were so many times he's like, the Justice Gang can handle that. Even he's just sitting there on a date with Lois, or just like talking with her before he turns himself in. There's fighting something in the background. It's like, oh, they've got it.
Actually loved that. I was like,
Yeah,
"Oh, that's a side I'm not used to with
yeah,
Superman," where he's
yeah,
just like, "Oh, yeah, this is an interdimensional blah, 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 blah." Like, they've got that. That's fine. That's
yeah.
another Tuesday.
And that was one thing because normally, like I said, whenever you hear about the Superman complex, it's like, oh, they just have to save everybody. And it's like, it's not just that. A lot of the times, it's not just that they have to save everybody, they don't trust anyone to save
Mm.
themselves or handle another situation besides them.
Yeah, I mean, this can actually happen a lot in the helping field where it's not necessarily to that point, but there is an interesting piece of if if you feel the need to save people, being careful. Saving people is not always what they need. And I think
Right.
that's what you're highlighting on here.
Yeah.
So it's not helpful if Superman takes care of everything because inevitably there's going to be some time where Superman can't do it. And then what is everyone going to do? They're going to be screwed because they don't know what to do. They haven't gotten used to it, right? Or sometimes a person can feel so responsible or want to help to the point where they see themselves as the only one, like you said, the only one that can help. That's a problem because people need diversity in their social support and who's helping them. And so if we're so focused on how we help, we're not helping to make sure that there's balance with what the other needs might be because one person can't provide everything. Even Superman, he can't provide everything. Even if it's saving the day, he can't provide everything. So, yeah, it's definitely. He did seem to have a healthier balance in this version for sure.
Yeah. He absolutely did. And it's funny because whenever I think about the Superman complex and that definition, it makes me think of a group project. And I'm not gonna lie, I was that guy in a group project. If it was one of those things where I was working with people I didn't know, I'm just like, hey, all right, this is what the project's on. You know what? Y'all enjoy this A. I got it. I don't trust. I do not trust. No.
Oh, see, I would just take charge and make sure everybody knows what they're doing and that it's happening.
See, no. And see, honestly, I think Superman complex kind of came into play. I'm like, I don't trust you to do that. When it says find primary sources, did you just list yahoo.com? Did you just is that what I just saw you do? Just I'm gonna
So,
I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna
yeah.
do
So, like, to be honest, though, too, part of it was I think so, nowadays I keep a closer eye. I trusted too much. I think I just kind of assumed other people were approaching things in a similar way as I was with the group projects, unless they really prove me otherwise.
maybe.
And so
Yeah.
that's a thing where ironically Superman is not always someone with this Superman complex, because he's a trusting guy. He believes in the good in people. And so in some ways I feel like that actually helps hit counterbalance the fact that he could easily fall into the complex himself just because of everything going on. Versus Keith, you don't trust a soul out there.
Who's my favorite superhero?
He's mine too. I guess I have more explaining to do with that than you do though.
well, yeah, and also you went to school for healthy stuff like that, trusting people.
But I actually had to work on, so when I went on internship, so like, you do graduate school and then you do a full year of like full clinical work internship. And one of the things that I worked on that year was I told my supervisor, I was like, I need help knowing when people aren't being completely honest with me. Because I just would assume that people would just be completely upfront. And even if a person's not like downright trying to deceive you, people aren't just like telling you everything just because you're their therapist. But
true.
so honestly, I had to work on a lot of that stuff, and I feel like Superman's a little bit similar. Yeah, he believes in the good, and that's wonderful, but he might fall into some traps or misunderstandings because of it, which is why I think it's great he has Lois. She's a nice counterbalance for him.
Well, not just that, but if anyone is gonna be like gullible and fall into traps, at least it's the one that's nigh indestructible, right? Like
Mm.
if Batman was as trusting as Superman, he would have been dead. Like been dead. Like
Yeah,
right. It's like, oh,
yeah.
I dropped a building on him, and all right, no more Batman. That's that. That's that. Superman, it's like, oh man, he dropped 5 buildings on me. He got me again. And then he just flies
Actually, I think
out.
that's very psychologically interesting too, because so if you think about it, like we think about risk factors, protective factors. So there are genetics, there are social underpinnings, like we were talking about, how Superman was raised versus how Batman was raised, or Clark Kent versus Bruce Wayne. So there are risk factors and protective factors when it comes to different things, including mental health. And actually, I think that's a really fair carryover where I grew up, I was very lucky. And actually part of why I do the things that I do is because I honestly, in some ways, it's how I work through the guilt of the fact that not everyone has a lot of the different ways of stability I had in terms of how I was raised and what resources and privileges we had and different things like that. So a way for me to give back. But I think it's kind of a similar thing for me in some ways where I can afford to trust, because if that trust gets broken, I I lucked out with more protective factors.
Mhm.
And so take someone who had to deal with a lot of trauma or instability or, other things, they have more risk factors that can affect their mental health. And so they're naturally going to be less trusting, which, by the way, I'm not trying to say anything about you specifically. I'm just talking generally
You said what you
about a
said.
pattern that could happen.
Huh?
I'm not saying everyone that distrusts, and this is why, but let's be real. It's not as risky for Superman to trust people compared to Batman. Exactly what you're talking about. And I think that's a fair thing to say about like us as people when we have less risk of losing things, or we just have more of those protective factors through no fault of our own, just luck of the draw. You have more room to risk and to trust. And so for other people, you've really got to build up toward being able to have trust with other people, because to be quite frank, you're working off of a lot less resources at your
Hmm.
disposal, and there's more that at risk for you, like Batman, right? Building falls on him, bye-bye.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like, okay, I don't have, I can't make as many mistakes as you can. I just
Yeah.
can't afford it.
So ironically, Batman is the one with the Superman complex. Isn't that funny? Because I mean, technically, if you think about it, it's kind of the other way.
That is funny. Yeah, because he doesn't even trust his own Robins most of the time. He,
Exactly. Exactly. He only trusts them when he has to, and he doesn't like doing it.
right,
So yeah, Batman's the one with the Superman
right.
complex.
Although I'm not gonna lie, I have questions. This whole thing went down in Metropolis, and at no point was Superman like, "Can someone page my cousin? I know she's out there partying, but we could really use her like
Honestly,
right
though,
now."
my guess, he sees her as more of a problem than the dog. That's my guess. I think he would see it as more trouble than it's worth, and it would cause more problems than it would fix. That's my guess.
I'm so excited to see her. The same actress, she plays Rhaenyra, young Rhaenyra Targaryen in House of the Dragon. And so I was really happy to see her pop up. I'm like, oh man, this is gonna be great. She's gonna be a great Supergirl.
Man, yeah, I enjoyed this movie a lot. Obviously, I love how this is like our first. I think this is a case in point. We do what we want. It's our podcast, but it's like, hey, look, first episode of Monsters and Magic, and it's not really Monsters and Magic, but we wanted
It
to talk
had
about the movie because it just came out.
it had both. It had monsters.
You're talking
Definitely
about
had
the
monsters.
little growing creature thing.
A kaiju's a monster. Completely. A kaiju is definitely a
Is that
monster.
what it was? It a kaiju?
I think it I yes,
I mean,
that was a
essentially was, I guess.
essentially
But
was a kaiju.
what? Where was the magic?
Hot Girl's mace has magic.
It does.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
you
didn't know
can.
that.
They didn't talk about it, but it is
Well, neither did we.
widely known in the nerd world that Hawk Girl's Base has magic
See, I told you I'm not
properties.
a real nerd. We come back around full circle. I'm just a fake.
Now, when it no, I'll be honest. If you want to go down a crazy rabbit hole, like Hawkman, Hawk Girl, that whole race, like it just gets really strange. Like as a matter of fact, I think like one of them ends up being like a new Sandman at one point. Like it's a
Yeah.
whole it gets confusing. It gets really
I
confusing.
gotta admit, it.
Constantine's in there. Like
Uh,
like it
yeah,
just yeah.
I
Yeah.
gotta admit, like when things start getting super complicated like that, I'm like, too much work. So, okay, I will give to you that there's a monster, at least one monster. There's at least a little magic. Did we talk about any of that until the very end of this episode? No, not until I was talking about how we didn't have any monsters and magic. But that's okay because it's our podcast and we can do what we want.
I am interested in what they do with Ultraman, the the clone, which weird to me that they did
Oh, yeah.
Ultraman and not Bizarro, because that was a perfect Bizarro moment.
Yeah.
And they did Ultraman.
Especially like how much he was being controlled and probably the first clone attempt and yeah, I agree with you that I was a little surprised what direction they went with the cloning.
Yeah, and definitely interested in seeing what they do with that. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I want to watch it again to see what I missed, because I'm sure that I
Yeah.
missed some things.
Well, apparently I missed all sorts of people in it, so yeah, I'm looking forward to watching it again too. Thanks for nerding out with us. I'm clinical psychologist Dr. Amelia Brown.
And I'm educator and comic aficionado Keaton Hopkins. Check out my TV and movie reviews on YouTube at Team JBS. Check out our website at bat-therapy.com, our Bat Therapy YouTube channel, and follow us on social media. And don't forget our Patreon page at patreon.com/battherapy. See you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.